皆さんおはようございます。今年に入ってから世界はどことなく不穏な動きがあちこちで起きています。クリミアのロシアへの加入の選択、マレーシア航空の失踪、そして数日前日本の隣国台湾、その国会での生徒学生選挙から与党の中国国民党の政権が危ぶまれていると言われています。2008年まで時の台湾与党民進党政権時代の駐米大使として4年間務め、政権をなくした後、台湾人のもう一つの声をアメリカに理解してもらうため、2010年に民進党ワシントン DC での窓口を引き受け、今日に至っています。本日はスタジオにドクタージョゼフ・ウーさんをお招きして、今後の台湾と中国、そして日本とアメリカとの関係などについてお話を伺いたいと思います。Dr. Wu, nice to see you again.
Yeah, wonderful to see you again too.
I heard that you just came from Taiwan
Yes.
today.
Yes.
And then before that you were in Japan.
That's right.
And before that you were in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
What a busy schedule.
That's right.
What are you busy about?
Taiwan is in a situation that seems to be changing toward a new direction. If you look at the political landscape in Taiwan, the KMT government is still in office, but things seem to be changing. And if we want to have the international community understand more about Taiwan, especially about my party, I need to travel because I'm the representative of the party in Washington, D.C. But I also have lots of friends in Japan. I need to travel to Japan too. And if there's any need for me to travel to other parts of the world, I will.
So how was Japan? How was your impression about Japan?
My impression of Japan is just wonderful. When I was serving in the cabinet, I used to travel to Japan maybe 3-4 times a year, and I always get to meet with very good friends in politics, members of the parliament or government officials, and they maintain very special affections of Taiwan.
So it doesn't matter which party is in power.
Exactly. And in my mind, Japan is such a wonderful country, and I don't hesitate to tell anyone that I know that I love Japan, and that's out of my heart. And therefore, I think it's very important to keep our Japanese friends understand about Taiwan. And especially the DPP seems to have a very good chance to come back to power in a couple of years. We need to keep our friends either in Washington, D.C. or in Tokyo updated on the DPP.
How is American government? Apparently, lately, Japan has kind of not too fond of a relationship with Korea and also with China. And Washington, D.C. or White House apparently is not too happy about it.
Sometimes we try to look at what happened before to what happened to Japan right now. And for those people who have served in the DPP government, it's rather easy for us to see the situation in Japan or in Japan's relations with the United States right now as what happened before in between the DPP government in Taiwan and Washington, D.C. When the DPP was in government, a lot of people in Washington, D.C. criticized Taiwan's DPP government as a troublemaker.
Yes, I remember that.
We tried to enter the WHO, the World Health Organization, as a member under the name Taiwan, and we even tried to enter the United Nations under the name Taiwan.
But which is true. Everybody says it's Taiwan.
That's right. Taiwan is Taiwan.
Yes.
But the United States thought that was a provocative to China. When China says that's not good, the United States thought that it's provocative. But for me, Abe government is been doing the right thing, economically and also internationally. And internationally, they have been trying to strengthen relations with Taiwan. They resolved the fishing dispute with Taiwan and
the Senkaku Island.
The Senkaku Island issue. And the Abe government is also trying to revise its principles in collective defense so that it can shoulder more responsibilities in the strategic picture in East Asia. And it seems to me that the Abe government is doing all the right thing. And I have special affection for Mr. Abe himself. The reason is because he has special affection for Taiwan, so the feeling is mutual. And in that sense, I hope that Washington, D.C. can be more understanding of what's going on in Japan and pay a little bit more respect to the one who received so much support in Japan.
How did Mr. Abe get the fond feeling toward Taiwan?
Well, the way I understand was that his grandpa used to be the prime minister.
Yes.
And his grandfather has developed his long affection for Taiwan for so long. And when his father went to Taiwan, would bring him together when he was very young. And he started to develop that kind of special affection for Taiwan. And he's keep coming back to Taiwan when he's not in government. For example, a couple of years ago, he was in Taiwan to participate in one of the forum, and he not only speak with the government officials, he also speak to people in opposition, including myself. And you can see that he was so relaxed in his conversation with us, and he can speak very simple Chinese, and he can speak some English. His English actually is not bad, and many of our senior leaders can speak Japanese.
Yes.
So you can see that when we meet with each other, it's like friends seeing each other.
That would help Japan and Taiwan relation,
Yes. Yes.
especially when he's the prime minister right now.
Yes.
However, Taiwan side is Ma Ying-jeou is in power. He is the one opposed to Japan. But I think personally, he just doesn't like Japan. Would that?
I think you are right.
Would that make Mr. Abe kind of hard to deal with Taiwan?
I think so. It's a little bit difficult. Even though I'm not supposed to say too much about my meetings in Japan, but I took away a very clear message from the Japanese friends that they seem to find problems in the current government in Taiwan, especially the president himself. They think that the current president in Taiwan is China prone or China inclined, too much favor of China, and maybe have some anti-Japan sentiment in him. And that is exactly how we know about President Ma as well. The way I would describe President Ma is that he's so much tilting toward China, but seem to have a lot of hatred toward Japan. And whenever he talks about Japan, he talks about the experience of a Second World War in China, not in Taiwan, in China. And he talks about Japan's surrender to China all the time. He even set up a statue of the Japanese surrender in the Taipei Guest House, which is a government official building.
Goodness.
So this is very bad.
Totally wrong.
This is very bad. And for me, Japan is such a special friend, not only economically, but also politically. I think in security sense, Taiwan and Japan needs to develop even closer ties with each other for each other's benefit. And if you keep bringing up historical memories of what Japan did in China, not in Taiwan, in China, that is not going to improve Taiwan's relations with Japan.
I just learned that Taiwan's students occupied legislative house. And apparently it's not going to solve the problem right away. And Ma Ying-jeou is, I think the reason students are upset is because Ma Ying-jeou tried to force the legislative house to pass a law. It's called Service Trading Agreement with China. On the surface, it looks like a service and trading, but however, behind the treaty, it's all hiding something. It's not very good for Taiwanese people's livelihood. And can you tell us how these things start?
Well, this is very important, and I'll probably say that this is a turning point for Taiwan's political development for the next couple of years as well.
Is that right?
Yeah, that is very critical, and so critical that it might change the last phase of the Ma administration. Its popularity is so low these days that it cannot be, we thought that it cannot go any lower. But I think the event is going to make it even worse for the KMT government to run for the year-end local election or to run for 2016 presidential election. The reason why the students would go out and protest and occupy the legislative yuan meeting floor for the reason that President Ma wants to push forward the service trade agreement with China. And if we look at the service trade agreement with China, we can find several areas that are problematic. The most immediate one is the legislative procedure. If we look at the trade agreement in between any two countries,
like TPP
or FTAs
right.
Between the United States and Korea,
NAFTA,
or between Japan
right.
and China, they need to go through some certain procedures.
Yes.
For example, the government has to do an impact assessment. Right. Of course, a trade agreement is going to benefit somebody, but at the same time impact on some other people. And the government needs to do an overall assessment.
Yes.
So that the government understand which area that they need to try to help beforehand. But the government does not do any impact assessment in Taiwan regarding the service trade agreement. No assessment at all.
That's very dangerous.
That's right, very dangerous. They signed the agreement last year.
With China.
With China. But then the people were asking, where is the impact assessment? And the government said, okay, we'll do that. So they dedicate one of the economic institutions in Taiwan, funded by the government, and then started to do the impact assessment. And of course, this institution is funded by Taiwan, funded by the government, and therefore, the results of the impact assessment is all positive. It's going to create more jobs, it's going to bring in more international investment, things like that. But we have seen that kind of impact assessment before. In 2010, we signed an ECFA, the Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement with China. The same institution was talking about all the rosy picture of Taiwan's economy once the agreement is signed. But nothing happened. And therefore, people doubt the impact assessment. And then people also ask the government, where was the consultation process as being seen in any other trade agreement? But there was no consultation. Nobody knew it, even the legislators.
It's like a dictatorship.
It's dictatorship. We call that black box decision making. Nobody knows what's going on.
I see.
And then we started to hear the Chinese government officials engaging in trade negotiations with Taiwan. They're saying that Taiwan government officials doing the negotiations doesn't even know what they want.
Oh boy.
So it's very dangerous.
It is.
So another area that we can do is to look at the agreement itself to see if it's good for Taiwan or bad for Taiwan. We find several areas that are rather damaging to Taiwan. For example, it's not fair. When the Chinese government wants to have other companies from other nations wants to make investment, for example, in the printing sector.
Okay.
The Chinese government needs to issue special permit, but they never give it to any foreign investors in the printing sector. They always give it to their own Chinese printers. But when Taiwanese sign an agreement with China on printing business, the Chinese will be able to come to Taiwan and set up their printing business free. But the Taiwanese won't be able to do the same. And the Chinese will also be able to come to Taiwan and do all the telecommunications, which every other country is doing it as a national security issue. And the Chinese financial sector is also able to go to Taiwan, but the Chinese banks are state-owned banks. They're huge operators. So when they go to Taiwan, they may be able to take over Taiwan's financial control corporations or banking systems, and that will be our national security problem. So when we put all this together, we find that this might not be a trade service agreement that Taiwan needs right now. If we want to sign a service trade agreement, we need to do a better assessment, and we need to be open to the public. We need to have a consultation process before we sign it, and that is what we're looking at right now. And the government is also doing it in such a weird way in the legislative end. The convener of the internal committee was hiding a microphone in his pocket and just murmured in the bathroom saying that this agreement is passed. And the people in Taiwan just got so angry that how can you do this to such an important agreement that might affect Taiwan's future, Taiwan's destiny, and we want to have it to be sent to the committee for further review. So I guess this is a brief history of the controversy associated with the service trade agreement with China. And of course, we need to look at China's perspective as well. China always has that objective in incorporating Taiwan, absorbing Taiwan, or taking Taiwan over. And service trade agreement is one of those soft ways. You know, they want to incorporate Taiwan's economy to make Taiwan part of China's economy in order to absorb Taiwan totally in the future.
Well, then that would be very disadvantage for Japan too. And then
Exactly.
not only Japan, all the nations in the world, when they do trade, the first sea lane will be gradually blocked
Yes.
by China.
Yes. And in that sense, our party's policy is for Taiwan to engage more with other countries. For example, we should probably engage more with Japan and the United States and Australia and New Zealand for more free trade agreements. And right now, the government seems to be concentrating on China, and that is not good for Taiwan. And I'm sure it's not good for other friendly countries as well.
Dr. Wu, next week, would you tell us, because some people are worried about would Taiwan become a second Crimea? And next week, would you tell us about that?
Yes.
Thank you so much.